I love that intro video, by the way. Good evening, everybody. Welcome aboard to the weekly recap video. My name is Carlos Garcia. I'm the founder and CEO of GAR Capital. 10 years providing service to our clients. Thanks so much for joining me. November 3rd, 2024. Happy Sunday evening. It's time to rock and roll and go over it. Talk about the week that we just had, the week that's coming up. It's going to be a big week, obviously. Election is on Tuesday, the presidential election. I'm sure everyone's going to talk about it. I went ahead and did a podcast on it, did the presidential election 2024 podcast talking about the economic side, stock market, what to look for, what sectors are going to benefit, so on and so forth. But if you're looking for a prediction in terms of who's going to win, your guess is as good as mine. Obviously, we all get one vote. So again, listen to the podcast for the stock market stuff and economic implications. But if you're looking for political punditry and why someone is going to win or not, that wasn't the podcast for you, by the way. So with that being said, let's go and get started. All right. So first thing I want to start off with is welcome to November. October was a little wild, but it wasn't terrible either. Octobers are usually pretty bad. So we didn't have any October surprise in terms of the market tanking or anything crazy. Yes, we had a pullback towards the tail end of October. But again, at the end of the day, higher asset prices go in terms of the dip becomes sharper because the percentages change. So, you're looking at NASDAQ futures from 788 all the way down to 20,100 or 20,000. That's 700 points. Now you may think, oh my God, the market is cratering. That's just 2 days. That's nothing. The higher we go, you're going to see those kind of drops. So just get used to that in terms of, sideways action. All right. So what I have in my hand now is the stock market almanac for 2024. I turned the page to November and I got 3 bull days, November 4th, which is tomorrow, the 6th, which is Wednesday, and the 7th is Thursday. Now, one thing I did say regarding the presidential election is that it doesn't matter who wins. The United States of America is economically strong, and we have a great stock market for now. I do expect stocks to move higher in November, December, and January, regardless of who wins. So again, if that's what you were kind of thinking that, if I say this candidate wins, the market's going to go to hell, that's not the case. All right, so at least that. There's one piece I wanted to read to you as well. The week before November options expiry, and options expiry will be next week, the 15th. The S&P is up 9 out of the last 14 weeks, 14 times. So the week before November OPEX, 9 of the last 14 times, it's been green. Pretty good hit rate, by the way. So let's go ahead and pivot now quickly to futures. We can see here Dow is down 108. Some news that came out, NVIDIA is being added to the Dow Jones Industrial Average. Awesome. They're going to replace Intel. Dow Chemical was replaced by Sherwin-Williams. Does this really mean anything for the stock? Yeah, usually when, a stock is being added to a major index. Remember we talked about Palantir being added to the S&P? A couple of years ago, we talked about Tesla being added to the S&P. It's a big deal when they're added to that. In terms of the Dow Jones is really just 30 companies, the bluest of the blue chips. Think of it this way. Kodak used to be part of that, all right? You don't hear a lot about Kodak anymore. And if you're really young, Kodak made films and cameras. That's basically what they were. Eastman Kodak. Not anymore. Sears Roebuck was part of the Dow before, I believe. Not any longer. Businesses change. Things change. Mergers, acquisitions. Companies change. Market cap changes. Intel. Another one bites the dust. Make room for NVIDIA. NVIDIA is part of it. So I expect NVIDIA to move higher. So this week. So we'll keep an eye on NVIDIA as well. Probably get a little sympathy boost because of that Dow thing. But with that being said, in terms of the Dow and everything like that, it really is not a huge deal. A lot of people don't quote the Dow. The Dow is really just for newspapers. Dow is up this number. The S&P, even that's skewed. If you really want a good barometer of where the stock market is, it's equal weight S&P RSP. So you can see I'm putting my cursor on that. That's all 500 stocks in the S&P equally weighted. NVIDIA has the same weight as Kroger, for example. So you don't have skews of the numbers if you're trying to get a gauge of where the market really is. So with that being said, NASDAQ's up 30 points, S&P is down flat, and the Russell's down about 0.5%. So we're starting to get a little bit of a boost down. The NASDAQ, we tagged some support right around 20,070, and that's where we bounced. But right now, listen, we have an election coming up on Tuesday, and it's basically a 50-50 split according to betting markets, according to polls. So we really don't know what will happen. This is another earnings example. We don't know. And we're betting on reaction. So I don't expect tons to do in terms of Monday. I don't expect tons to do on Tuesday. I actually expect it to be rather choppy the next 2 days until we have at least some semblance of a winner so we can price in their tax policies or tax in their or price in their policies for the future. It's an example. That's what we're looking for. Oil right now up 1.44%. Gold is flat. Bitcoin's down 0.67%. Ethereum's down 2.23%. The dollar is down today against the yen, down 115 pips. The dollar's relatively slightly green at the moment. So, nothing that stands out that says, oh my God, something's happening. Just rather choppy action right now. All right. So what I want to go ahead and do is pivot to the week that we had in terms of options. All right. So here we go. Here's the month of October. And we were 77% win loss. If I would have closed Wells Fargo, we would have been at 78. But Wells Fargo, I still have open. The WFC calls. We had a really great streak towards the end of the month, 9 in a row. It ends this week because we had 3 L's this week. I'll go over that with you guys. But you can see how we started rather, in the month of October. We had some carryovers from September in terms of signals. 2 of the first 3 losses were for September. So, but you could see kind of started slow, had a couple of wins, and you could see one of them, JP Morgan. I mean, we were in the money. We just ran out of time. We're hitting our targets very closely, if not to the T. It's just the reversals in October are very tough. I expect November to be a lot better. The problem is that we haven't started November, at least this go around, on the right foot. But hey, we did the same in October and we did very well. So I think October was definitely strong, especially the way we ended it. The beginning, obviously, some kinks that we could have fixed. For example, Google hit in the money literally the day after expiry, which is the worst. ASML headlines killed their AMD puts calls, and JP Morgan, hit in the money 4 times, and we were at expiry. So unfortunately, that didn't happen. But we went ahead and just kept pushing forward, and that's what we got, 9 in a row. So again, very happy the way it ended. In terms of the week, green trades, Citibank, 67.5 calls. We had those for a couple of weeks. We got 26%, it has high 45%. NVIDIA puts were a tough hold. Let me make that clear. That was not easy to hold. Everyone was expecting all-time highs, but we held firm. We actually gave everyone a heads up on NVIDIA before AMD earnings. But I went ahead and said, I think NVIDIA is still holding for downside. It got as high as 70% in the money. So great trade there. We'll go over that chart here in a second. Boeing, we hit that on Friday. 160 calls, hit 40%, hit as high as 63. So that was a good trade. Tesla, 285 calls. They flipped on us, unfortunately, when we got in. So that was just a swing and a miss. BABA, that one hurts. Tuesday morning, pre-market, I sent screenshots to our members, option members know, that we were deep in the money. I think we were like 103.40 at that time. We had the 102 calls. Great volume, pretty much home run setup. And that thing flipped literally that same morning and never recovered. That is just China stocks for you. That's just BABA for you. And we can't say BABA is always bad because remember when we had all the China stocks soaring higher, BABA was doing great. And then it pulled back a little bit and, well, it's kind of resetting now. XLE, 91 calls. We got very close to the strike. We had a little bit of a push with some headlines from the Middle East, but just not enough time, unfortunately. It even had great volume, but that's an L as well. So, 3 and 3, not our finest hour. Okay, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh, yeah, we're doing great. Listen, I always say this about myself. You're only as good as your last trade, really, at the end of the day. And right now, we had a great streak that ended, and we need to step up and get back to our winning ways. We know what's possible. We know what we can do. We just got to tighten up and make sure that we don't have these reversals, maybe change the expiries. But unfortunately, we had this week expiry on these. So we were trying to save money ahead of the election, kind of bit us. But once the election is over, I've been repeating it, things are going to stabilize. Things are going to be a lot easier because we are in a bull market. It's just market's very jittery based on a very, very important election to the stock market and to people, obviously. So that's where we were for the month of October and this week. Let's go ahead and kind of jump around into the free watch list that we send out to everyone at the blog, even if you're not a paid member. Here's 3 stocks that we're watching. Granted, this could all change because of the election. If you listen to the podcast, XBI being an example, UNH being another example, and Micron being semiconductors. This is all not based on who I think is going to win or a candidate. It's just basically on the charts. But if you listen to the podcast, these three stocks, or one is an ETF, is going to be affected, obviously, about who wins. So we're taking a look at XBI here. Check out the weekly chart. See that purple line right there? That's your 20-week moving average. Not only is the 20-week being bounced off of, but it's crossing over the 200-week moving average, which has been kind of a level of support since January 2022, the inflation scare, the invasion of Ukraine from Russia, kind of 2022, how it started in terms of all that. Once you break 103.52, you really have up to 120, which was where we were in November of 2021, excuse me. So that was just 3 years ago. So it looks like we're setting up for a breakout on XBI, which is the biotech ETF, but we're just looking for that break above 103.52. We'll keep an eye on the volume, and we'll see where we go from there. United Health. This is a company I always have talked about and loved. 555.90. If that breaks down, yes, we have a target of right around 530 to 513. But what I'm expecting is to hold that 20-week MA, that purple line, just like XBI, but there's a gap to fill in the daily, right around 600. So granted, this will probably be an expensive option, but if you're watching and you wanted to trade this, that's what we're looking for. Break 580, you target 600 on United Healthcare. Not a name that we trade a lot, that's for sure. But I've talked about it many times on our top 10 lists. Micron, taking a look at it here. Remember that inverse head and shoulder setup I had? This was part of the free watch list as well. It's invalidated now. It's below 101, I believe. It's now at 99.73. It's hugging the 50-day MA. But if that breaks 98.37, we're going to get down to 91.92. So we're looking to short Micron if it does break below 98.37. And remember, we were talking about shorting NVIDIA really before anyone else was. That was something that, hey, you can call it luck, you can call it preparation meeting opportunity. But at the end of the day, we saw the possible double top on NVIDIA and that pullback. And that's what we got. It took a bit. It took a while to get there, but we got it. So is NVIDIA going to be okay? Yeah. I mean, it's going to bounce. And because of this Dow inclusion, are we talking possible all-time highs? Hey, maybe we get above 142.41 and we could talk about playing calls again. But it was a nice trade to the put side because it was such a hard grind to hold it. And it worked out for everybody. Let me see if I can find that chart on NVIDIA. Let's see. Here we go. So here was on the 24th, 1 hour chart, slight gap to fill at 136.12 right there. That's when we got in. You can see the stock was at 139.70. It's pretty much trading at the same spot now because of the Dow inclusion. But look at how low it got, 132.20. I was hoping for 130, but we didn't get there. I wanted to get the bags on it, but can't be too upset on that end. But it was a good call. I'm glad that we did it. And I'm glad that everyone stayed resolute, even in the face of AMD earnings. We stuck with it, and it worked out for us. I just wish the other ones worked out for us too. It's unfortunate. But we will make it back, team, like we always do. Let's see. Let's take a look at the futures side real quick. All right, we're starting to tag the 50 MA and the 1 hour, starting to bounce here. You could see the daily. We still got a little bit more. I would say around 410 would be your next target if you can stay above 250. That's what would probably be my level on NASDAQ. I put some Fibonacci levels based on the recent spike and low. And you can see like 20,000 being our support. We tagged 20,070. Again, we're still within range of around 120 points. Nothing too exciting as of now. It's kind of tough to say we're pricing one way or another regarding the election. I think it's just back and forth chop. And really, once this election is done, we can move on in terms of this kind of worrisome market where it's just very jittery. That's not what we want. Let's go ahead and now get to the week. We'll go to our earnings calendar. All right, here we go. Earnings, great. We got Palantir. We have super micro computers, SMCI. Oh boy. We also have Celsius, Novo. We have CVS. We have ARM, which is the semiconductors. Qualcomm, which I'm watching as well. You could see they report on Wednesday, and DraftKings on Thursday. We have earnings, but we have the trade for December. Trade Desk, Affirm, Fortinet, Arista. I mean, these are, I can't say small caps, mid caps. Moderna's there. If there's any name here that stands out, obviously Palantir is going to stand out. That's the one that we've traded before. Qualcomm as well, and DraftKings. But everything else, I mean, not tons of options volume out there. Unless something stands out, I'll keep an eye on it. But that's the earnings that we have. We'll take a look at Palantir, Supermicro, and Celsius. How about we just do those to start us off? All right, we'll start with Palantir. Palantir has hit new all-time highs, but the CEO has been selling some shares. You could see on the daily starting to get a little bit of a pullback. Again, completely natural. You could see kind of that nice straight arrow line there. I guess if you just hold above 40 is what you're looking for, maybe a retest. I have a retest of 34 as the breakout. And if we can get there, great. That might be a buy the dip opportunity. But I could see the stock getting to around 40, possibly to 38. Tough call here. Let me see on the weekly because we just got off all-time highs. So yeah, I'm going to say that Palantir pulls back a little bit. I think the stock is great. I think the company's great. I've been saying it. But I think cool down a little bit. It'll some profit taking possibly out there in Palantir. So I'll lean short if it gets below 40. How's that? I'll lean like bearish on that end. Now, again, if we break 45, no one's going to be upset. Certainly not me. SMCI. Now, this one's a tough one because it's just all headlines. 17. I think if you get to 17, that might be an opportunity to possibly dip by. There's a lot of times, a lot of names out there that were hammered throughout the years. Netflix, Meta, Tesla has been hit, Apple, Nvidia. I mean, it just happens. And that's where you just got to find opportunities when it's time to buy, you won't want to, is the saying, right? Walter Deemer. 1708 on SMCI. The only issue with a super micro is that the headlines are something that you cannot control. That could happen at any time. So it's a roller coaster. I mean, Supermicro is not the only company in the world that's had, any kind of auditing issues or accounting issues. Many have. I think a lot of people still have the taste of the what is it? The FX company, FX, I forget the name, FXCI or something like that. Not FXCI. Where that gentleman who got arrested for fraud, I think it's some FX something. It was a crypto thing. I just forget, the name slips me. But yeah, they had accounting issues too. So that worst case scenario where, FTX, excuse me, we're basically there. I think it's FTX. Not really sure. But yeah, I mean, that's just a tough one. We don't know what their earnings are going to say. I would stay absolutely away unless it gets to $17. Then I think it's worth an opportunity to really just take advantage of the fear out there. Now, again, could the stock go to zero? Again, I don't know their books. I didn't audit them. It's really just based on, can you take advantage of other people's fear? It's a poker game out there, guys. That's really it. I'm sure that Supermicro has plenty of assets that they can sell, or they can be merged with another company or be bought out by another company. There's obviously value there. It's just getting hammered at these headlines. It happens. Celsius. Let's take a look at it. Ooh, tough round trip from the daily. Let's take a look at the weekly. Starting to hit some support. Maybe around $25 would be nice. If rates go lower, names like Celsius will bounce. So at least you have that. But you're starting to hit some support here. I think Celsius bounces personally, short term. But it is a death cross. But I think we'll get a little bit of a relief bounce. Very similar to this guy, Intel, where you had the bull flag and continued higher, but they removed from the Dow. They'll probably pull back a little bit. But you can see on their earnings, a very nice candle. I expect that for Celsius as well. Qualcomm. Qualcomm actually has a head and shoulder setup. I actually think Qualcomm is going to fall. So I think Qualcomm will probably get to around 150 to 152. Post earnings, again, I don't know what their report is. It's very tough to predict reaction, but this is what I see based on the chart. That looks like we're set up to break down just based on that head and shoulders formation. Left shoulder, you actually had a bull flag before, and now you have your right shoulder if it breaks below 161. And let's see, DraftKings. They report on Thursday. DraftKings, another bull flag if you just go use this, the pole and the flag. So we're just waiting to break above 38. And if it does, we expect to get to 42. And you had the upward wedge breakdown. So right now you are setting up a bull flag. Here's your pole. It usually should be straight up, but here's your pole and here's your flag. You just got to get above 38. If DraftKings gets above 38 or Missouri legalizes sports gambling, that is actually on the ballot this year, I think DraftKings will benefit. So we will see. One more, I guess. We have Rivian. Oh, tough one here. not near support. Anything that stands out? Guess below 982. You have about $8. You do also have a death cross, excuse me. So it does not look great for Rivian. They need lower rates. The good news is that Tesla had a good quarter, at least in terms of reaction. Maybe there is a little bit of an opportunity here on Rivian. It's just holding support. It has to hold $10. If it breaks $10, you're going to get to around $8.26. So I'm probably leaning that Rivian pulls back. But again, I'm not going to trade that. It's just based on a feeling. That's not going to work for me. So that is where we are, at least for some notable earnings this week. Hey, not only do we have earnings this week, we also have the FOMC. We have the Federal Reserve decision. So that'll be on Wednesday. It should be Wednesday. Is it here? On Thursday, excuse me. Thursday at 2 p.m. is the interest rate decision, and 2:30 is the press conference with Jerome Powell. We have Michigan consumer sentiment on Friday, and next week we have CPI. How about that? And don't forget, we have the presidential election as well. Initial jobless claims on Thursday. So that's the stuff that's really important that's going to come out. Monday should be more likely positioning ahead of the election, possibly. Probably some chop. I don't expect tons. The presidential election day, even Tuesday, is going to be chopped because the polls don't close till at least 7, 8-ish, maybe. So the market closes at 4. It's not like anything's going to happen. I'm definitely not trading futures on Tuesday with the election. I will be watching it, and we'll keep you guys up to date on the blog for sure. But am I going to trade it? Absolutely not. Listen, if I want to gamble, I'll go to Vegas. All right, let's just watch what happens and go from there. So we went over 3 stocks that we're watching this week, went over the week that we had. We went over some names on earnings. We went over a couple of charts on futures. We got the FOMC coming. I expect 25 basis points. I think that's what priced in the market. So expect a 25-point rate cut. We had a softer labor market report, the non-farm payroll report, lowest job creation since December of 2020. So I think the Fed has an excuse to at least just do 25, in my opinion. I think that's what everyone's kind of pricing in. We'll more than likely get another 25 in December. I think that happens regardless of who wins, to be quite honest. So we'll see what we get. A lot of moving parts, of course, but we'll leave it there and we'll update you as we go. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join me this evening. Have a great rest of your evening. I will catch you guys tomorrow on YouTube for the morning note. Thank you so much again. www.gar.capital if you want access to our free live market blog on our Discord channel. Discord is an app. So you have to download the Discord app first so you can be part of the chat room. We have it all there. We'd love to have you on board. Thank you so much. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you later. Cheers all.